Yes, my name is Bill Winder, and I am being charged with criminal contempt of court for breaching the TMX injunction. There were two main tree sits, and I had been occupying those tree sits for some time. And then the construction started approaching those main tree sits, and we decided that we would establish two what we call sky pods. They're hammocks about 70 to 80 feet up in some of the cottonwood trees in front of where the main tree sits were. I'm actually afraid of heights, but I'd gotten used to it, and by the time this happened in September, I wasn't scared at all about that part of it. There was other parts that were more scary, which was the arrest and so on. And one morning, 2 days after the election, they came to extract me from the tree sit. We assumed that the only reason they allowed us to stay up so long for 12 days is because the election was coming. And that kind of indicates this is not an ordinary project. It's highly politicized. The RCMP and the tactical unit arrived, and they came up in this cherry picker. Well, first of all, they had to cut the cable that attached me to the tree, because I had basically put a bicycle lock around my neck and attached myself to the tree, and they cut that fairly quickly. They were ready for that, to respond to that obstacle, and then they just attached me and lowered me to the ground, and it was done very quickly. They could have done it 12 days ago, but as I say, I think the reason they didn't is because they were worried about media attention, and they didn't want to politicize the TMX. Most of us, I think all of us, will plead guilty, and when we go to court, we will have, at some point in the procedure, we'll have the chance to make a statement to the court about our motivation and as well what we think our sentence should be. I've never set foot in a prison, and so this is quite a new experience. I'm retired. I really feel like it's up to us to put ourselves in harm's way rather than young people. I don't have a job to worry about, and so the time in prison will not be pleasant by any means, but the consequences are much less for me than it might be for a young person. We're in a climate crisis, and we want to respond to that climate crisis, and expanding the pipeline is the wrong way to go. Clearly, they are not respecting indigenous rights when they put these pipelines through, whether it's the Coastal GasLink pipeline or the TMX pipeline. We had the forest fires, we had Linton that burned down, we had 2 seniors that burned to death, we had 4 people dead during the floods at Sumas Valley, 600 plus deaths during the heat dome for reasons that are beyond me. Well, actually, that's not true. I was going to say for reasons that are beyond me, but no, I understand perfectly why we're not reacting, is that we're actually kind of in a war with planetary physics. And in a war, somebody has to sacrifice. And generally, in all the wars that we've had in the past, it is the poor. In this war, it has to be the rich. And the rich do not want to sacrifice. That's not their mindset. And so they have fought not to go to war against climate change. But it means as well the corporate captured governments are very reluctant to sacrifice their wealthy donors to fighting this war against planetary physics. That's what it would take. It would take a wartime effort to deal with the climate crisis, and if we don't, it will continue much, much worse. There is an enormous shift happening that has to happen, which is the shift from seeing resource extraction as something positive that gives you respectability and wealth to a crime. And this has happened in Belgium, where ecocide is now recognized as a crime. The tar sands are ecocide. It's such an incredible shift in perspective. It's very difficult for us to make that shift. That means the courts can't make that shift. The only thing I can find in history, it would be the abolition of slavery. The slave states separated. They then waged war in order to protect the status of the slaves as slaves. And we see the same thing in Alberta, where we have a war room in Alberta and separatist Wexit movement, the idea of separating because they want to protect the tar sands and oil exploitation. We are in a very difficult position where all of our values are being challenged, and we have to make that shift, but it's very difficult.
Do you think we're going to do it in time?
Rationally, I don't think so. I think we have no hope at all. But even when I say that, all that does is motivate me to do more, to go to prison, because if you just abandon hope and don't do anything, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The scale of this is so large that you have to make a large sacrifice. And therefore, for me, 21 days in jail is already a very big start for a sacrifice. So all it does is say to me, do more. And that's my goal, is to do more.